Those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Freeman. I'm president of the Neighborhood Association. I was elected to this position 2 years ago. I didn't know it was a life appointment. Those of you that haven't been here before, there's restrooms, this building right here. The door's open. You just have to go in. The restrooms are right there on the right. So we're going to take care of a little business, just question and answer updates on things, and then we're going to turn it over to, whoops, I think my cards down. What do I do with them? Here they are. That's not it. That's correct. That's a credit card. Here we go.
We'll take it.
We have Jeanette Lofton with Animal Control, right here. And we have Tabitha with Humane Educators of Texas, and Kelly with Humane Educators of Texas. Jess Eckert with the Round Rock Police Department, back here in the back. One of our finest there, and Joel Huston, who's new to the area. Where'd he go? There he is, over here. You are the Animal Control Supervisor, which is, if y'all know, animal control's under police department. So when you call for animal control issues, you end up going through the police dispatcher. So they're going to give us a bunch of information tonight about our neighborhood and the fact that we live next to 10,000 acres of open land and why we have all these critters and how we deal with these critters and so forth. But in the meantime, some quick updates. Yes, our street paving is coming down the pipeline. Don't know exactly when, but it is coming for a bunch of the streets. Not all of them, but the worst ones. Silent crossings, again, should start in the fall to early winter because all the Union Pacific people are up north. When it's warm up there doing railroad work, and when it freezes up there, they come down here. Y'all see the work going on along 620, expanding 620 from Wyoming Springs to Deepwood. They're fixing it up like the rest of 620. And you're starting to see a little bit of rumbling and stuff around the railroad tracks and so forth. They're starting to work on utility stuff. They've acquired all the right-of-way they need for that big, massive project that they're going to do to take traffic off the railroad tracks. So we don't have to deal with rock trains anymore. Unless you choose to, because you'll still be able to go down. And if you decide you're just, for nostalgia, if you want to get held up for 20 minutes by a rock train, you can stay off the circle and go down. You'll be able to do that. So I think those are pretty much the pressing issues right now. Any questions of any other issues other than the animal stuff that we're going to talk about? Yes, ma'am.
The community garage sale, if it rains out this weekend, is there any alternative?
Good question. We have garage sale. And we have Teresa Gately here, by the way, who is doing an awesome job of putting that together and promoting it. No, thank you so much for doing that too. Teresa calls me and says, we have a garage sale. I say, people call me with all these great ideas, but between Don and I, our bandwidth is filled up. So you're more than welcome to run it. And she did it. So she took and ran it. She's doing an amazing job. The weather, we're watching. We're going to regroup tomorrow and see. And if we're going to flip a coin or something, decide whether to push it to next weekend. So the chances started high. They kind of gone down the last couple of days, so we're going to watch and see what it looks like tomorrow. And you guys know a lot of times these fronts, they say it's going to rain for 4 days, but the front comes through faster than they expected. We have like 2 days of rain, so we'll see. Anything else? Nothing else? Everybody's happy? Everything great in the neighborhood?
The elections.
Okay. What's that?
So we had the elections.
Had the election. Election's over. Nobody's allowed to say that word anymore for at least several months, okay? I want to hear that word again. I was ready to say something else.
About your campers on the greenbelt.
Okay, so yeah, we have somebody that's been camping on the greenbelt, and Sunday I think it was, I went over there and kind of ran them off. They were starting to leave anyway, but I kind of suggested to them, that they weren't allowed to camp there, and I was going to try to direct them to maybe the service center where they could point them in a direction to get help or something. Would have none of it. They got pretty nasty and pretty verbal about it, and we walked on off toward McNeil. So if anybody, you live along the greenbelt and you see that, call me. I posted on the Facebook pages today my phone number. Let me know. I've talked to the police department about what to do about it, so they're ready. We're gonna call them and let them know. And a couple of people, when I made that post today, they kind of got a little sideways, like I was being a little insensitive toward homeless. It's not about insensitivity. It's about protecting the people that live in this neighborhood. Okay, so, and just south of the Travis County line here, they can get all the resources they need. Travis County, next to Seattle, probably has more homeless resources than any city or Austin, any city in the nation. So there is there are resources for these people. So I'm not insensitive, okay? I pray for them all the time. I hope they do well, but we still have to protect our little ones and kids and so forth that may be running up and down the Greenbelt, okay? I can't think of anything else right at the moment. Everything seems to be going good. We're dealing with the normal everyday issues of traffic and so forth through the neighborhood, speeders. Remember, 90% of the people speeding through the neighborhood are your neighbors. Right? It used to be that were the people cutting through before they opened the toll roads and the O'Connor extension, but those people don't come through anymore. Yes, sir.
Hi, we've been seeing more solicitors. They need a permit.
Okay,
don't they?
good question. Anybody that knocks on your door outside of a Girl Scout or a religious person, they don't need permits. School fundraisers, band fundraisers, they don't need permits. Anybody else, tree trimmers, siding, windows, they have got to have a permit. Knock on your door, say, let me see your permit. They say, my boss has it, he's over on the next street. That's BS. They are each individually required to go to the police department and each person get their own permit to be carried with them when they knock on your door. So
Does it have a photograph on the permit?
it doesn't have a photograph on it, no. It's a pretty simple, basic permit. I'm not sure if the police department's working on any of that, but you know, we have a lot of them in there, and especially when we start seeing this time of year when the trees are getting trimmed and the grass is getting mowed and people are starting to fix up their houses, when you have painters and siding contractors and so forth, and they're working on your house and they want to go knock on the neighbor's house and the neighbor's house will get more business, they've got to have a permit to knock on a door. They don't have to have a permit to put a flyer. They can do that. They got to have a permit to knock on the door. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our animal experts because we live, like I said, in a neighborhood of 1,500 homes that's right next to God knows how many 10,000 acres or something that's got every critter known to man over there. So they're going to tell us about how we should deal with those. Are we going to get rid of them, or how's it going to happen? What is our end result here as neighbors living in the neighborhood? How do we deal with it? So thank you guys so much. So
Of course.
tell us all about it.
All right. Good evening. Oh, yeah. I'm pretty loud, but I will.
That's not for these guys. That's for the video that we post on our
No problem.
website.
I have a handy dandy microphone here. All right. So my name's Tabitha. I tonight am here representing Humane Educators of Texas, which is a company that I work with my friend Kelly. She's also a full-time ACO for the city of Georgetown. My full-time grown-up day job, pays all the bills, is I'm the animal control field supervisor for the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. Been in this industry about 17 years. Done lots and lots of stuff with urban wildlife, and one of the reasons we came out tonight is to talk to you guys about urban wildlife, maybe get you some education on how they work, how to get rid of them. I know that's the most important thing, and how to coexist with them. So if you have any questions tonight, feel free to stop me while I'm talking. I'm happy to answer any questions. We're going to stick around as well after the meeting if you would rather talk to us privately. And we've got Round Rock Animal Control here tonight to help out as well. They are going to be the ones you need to talk to about any sort of ordinances for Round Rock. I don't have any idea what those are. So
one of the questions that will come up, and somebody will ask you if you don't, I will, and that's later, is what do we do when you see a dead deer in the road or something dead in their neighbor's yard?
Yeah, if it's something about policy, procedure, or
They will
ordinance for the
talk
city of Round Rock, that's going to be directed to the ACOs for Round Rock. I can tell you anything you want to know about Williamson County, but I don't serve the city limits of Round Rock. So.
Is that okay? Can y'all see her and scream?
Yeah, our projector's not terribly bright, so I'm really sorry about this. Luckily, my PowerPoint's in white, and the pictures are not super pertinent. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is I'm going to touch on lots of different urban wildlife. I'm going to kind of hit all the major ones that you might see in your neighborhood. If I don't talk about a specific animal tonight, feel free to stop me and I can address it. I know that coyotes are the big concern as to why you are wanting some help with dealing with these. So we are going to spend a good chunk on coyotes. But I figured while we got you here, we're going to go over some of this. So in the state of Texas, we have 5 what are considered high-risk rabies animals. So these 5 animals here, raccoons, foxes, bats, coyotes, and skunks, are what fall into the high-risk rabies category. What that basically means is there's 1, a higher incidence of rabies in these animals. 2, each of these animals has their own variant of rabies, right? For example, we eradicated dog rabies back in the 70s with aggressive vaccine protocol. So we don't see dog rabies anymore in the States. See it in Africa, India, parts of Southeast Asia. We don't see it here in the States anymore. But we do have these in Williamson County. Our top 2 rabies suspects are bats and skunks, skunks being number 1 way more than bats. I think there's a higher incident of bats in Round Rock though. So all of these guys have their own. There is a raccoon variant of rabies, a fox variant, there's all the different types of variants. So what this means, you want to avoid handling them. You don't want to kiss them, you don't want to pet them, you don't want to get bit by them. It is required that if you or your domestic pets, your livestock, anything like that, does come in contact with any of these 5 animals, contact animal control, whether it be Round Rock or Williamson County. We'll come out and test the animal and tell you for sure, yes, it has rabies or no, it doesn't, and then follow the protocol from there. Most importantly, keep all your animals vaccinated against rabies. Any questions on rabies so far? All right. All right, so the first animal we're going to talk about is the opossum. Do you guys see a lot of these?
Yes.
Yeah. So the opossum, if you take nothing else away from all the other wildlife minus coyotes, remember that possums are your friend. They're one of the most beneficial animals as far as urban wildlife goes. They eat all the things that you don't want on your property. These guys eat snakes. They are immune to pit viper venom, so they will eat the copperheads and the rattlesnakes and all that. They'll keep them off your property. They eat a lot of ticks, so they're very, very good for keeping your yards clean. Most importantly, these guys are not dangerous. They look very scary. Fun fact, they have the same amount of teeth as a Tyrannosaurus rex. That is absolutely worthless against humans. They will open their mouth, they'll hiss, they'll put their hackles up, they try and look really big and scary. In the field, I don't even handle these guys with equipment. I put on a glove, I pick them up by the tail and take them where I need to take them. They largely will not bite. The other thing with these guys is their core body temperature runs a few degrees cooler than most other mammals. Because of that, they're very poor incubators for the rabies virus. In fact, we've only ever had 1 in this area test positive. It was 2007. And when they went back into the testing and the epidemiology on it, what they found is that the only reason it incubated the rabies virus is because it was sick with something else, which gave it a fever, which allowed it to incubate rabies. So these guys, 99.999% of the time, will not carry rabies. They are considered a low-risk animal. They're very slow. They largely keep to themselves. A lot of times you'll see them with babies. This one's got babies on its back. They're our only North American marsupial. So they do have a pouch, just like a kangaroo. And they'll raise the babies in the pouch for a while, and then when they get older, they come out. These guys are able to be on their own pretty young. So unless you see like a little pinky or a little baby, most of the time if they're up walking on their own, they're a few inches long, they're good to go and live on their own. The other thing about these guys is they are not strong animals as far as dog attacks, coyote attacks, things like that. So if your dog gets a hold of one, we're not super concerned about rabies, but the possum probably won't make it. Any questions about these guys?
They get cats.
Do what?
They get cats.
No, they generally leave other animals alone. They don't, unless something attacks them, they'll probably try to defend themselves, but they mostly, are solitary and move on. So you guys know, if you need this, I am going to be emailing this whole PowerPoint, which I assume they're going to post somewhere. So you guys will have access to this as well if you need any of this information after. Raccoons. You guys, I'm sure, see a lot of these guys. These guys are pretty cool animals. They eat everything. There is nothing raccoons won't eat. They love trash and fish and cat food and pretty much anything that they can get a hold of. They're very dexterous, which means they can do just about anything they want with their fingers. These guys are notorious when we try and catch them in the field. They'll open the cage that we have them in. They'll pull the catch pole off their neck. They're very, very dexterous. So it's really hard to keep these guys out of traps and out of bird feeders and out of all the things that you put up to repel them. They have good abilities. They're very strong swimmers. So if you guys have a retention pond or anything in this neighborhood, they can swim for a long time. Don't feed raccoons. It's the most important thing. I know it's hard. They're very cool creatures. They're very fun to watch. So in all my urban wildlife talks, I do encourage people to learn about your urban wildlife, research it. If you have kids or grandkids, have them take pictures and learn about it. It's super important. But you want to stay away from these guys. They will bite. They're a known carrier of rabies. They're usually only aggressive when threatened. Most of the time, they're just very inquisitive. And most urban raccoons lose their fear of humans. That's why they come so close to the buildings. All right, bats. We have a lot of these in Round Rock. We have the bat colony under the McNeil Bridge. Correct me if I'm wrong with the numbers. Last I heard, the colony down in Austin under the Congress Avenue Bridge was pushing 2 million. This one's pushing 1 million, isn't it? Are you over 1 million? Do you know?
I think we're over 1 million.
Okay.
I think.
So this colony is getting pretty big, right? They live under there. They're like everything you've heard of. They're nocturnal. They come out at night. A lot of them will eat their body weight in bugs every night, so they're very beneficial to the environment. These guys are protected under state law, so you can't touch them, you can't kill them, you can't do anything to them. So you have to leave them alone if you see them. The one that we have here in Round Rock largely is this one. It's the Brazilian or the Mexican free-tailed bat, same thing. It's just a little brown bat. All of our bats here are very small. They're not the big bats that you see down in Costa Rica or, South America. It's a very little bat, but we also have 2 other bats here in Central Texas. This center cute fluffy one that's called the hoary bat, and this bottom red one that looks like a little angry Pomeranian. The red bats are very fun because a lot of times you'll see them with babies on them, and they carry their babies on them, and they're super cute. It wasn't until last year that Williamson County, I'm not sure about Round Rock stats, it wasn't until last year that Williamson County got its first rabid red bat. We used to always say that the red bats don't have rabies around here. Can't say that anymore. We've never ever had a hoary bat test positive. The Mexican free-tails unfortunately do test positive pretty frequently, only because the ones we're testing are the ones that are grounded or sick. The truth of the matter is, for statistics for rabies in bats, less than half of 1% of bats are rabid. Now when we're talking about a 1 or 2 million bat colony, it's still a lot of bats. But animal control typically only gets involved if they're grounded or sick. So our incidence of dealing with rabid bats is a little higher than the average, but there's actually not a lot of bats that are rabid. The big concern with these guys, aside from rabies, is that a bat can bite you and you'll never feel it, and most of the time you'll never see the bite marks. Their teeth are like little teeny tiny hypodermic needles, and they're very, very short, so they can bite and you won't even feel it. When we take some of these rabies classes that we have to attend as animal control, they show this really funny picture. It's a very zoomed in close-up of someone's finger where they were bitten by a bat, and they literally had to take a circle to show the teeth marks, because even zoomed in you can't hardly see it. So these guys you never want to handle barehanded ever. If you ever see one grounded on your property, in your house, if you think your animals have come in contact with it, place a container over it and call animal control and we'll come and test it. All right, skunks. Do you guys smell a lot of skunks around here? Yeah. Okay. Skunks are here for the grubs. That's what they're here. They're here for the grubs in your grass, in your gardens. That's primarily what they eat. We have 5 species of skunk here in Central Texas. Primarily, we see the striped ones. We don't see a lot of the others around here. They're really good for pest control. If you don't want those grubs in your garden, then a skunk will take care of them. They're really good about that. Obviously, the worst part of the skunk is that they spray. They can spray in pretty much all directions. They can stand on their front legs, bend their legs back, and spray out the front. They're very good with the direction of their spray. I know from personal experience. So you don't want to think, oh, if I stand over here, no, he'll get you. Skunks have very, very poor eyesight, which is why they spray so much. That's their primary defense. They will bite if you can get close enough to one. But their primary defense is the spray. They're not blind, but they're very poor eyesight. So the reason they spray so much is because they don't necessarily see you, they just hear you, and they think, oh no, and then they start spraying. So a lot of times, when we have to catch them live in the field, if you talk to them the whole time you're approaching them, a lot of times they'll hold off spraying. Doesn't mean they won't spray. just means that they'll hold off a little longer because they know where you're at, they can hear you. So if you've got skunks in your area, it's good. It's kind of like with snakes. Be loud. They generally will move on because they don't want to be messing with people. The big problem we're having with skunks is not only are they the #1 rabies suspect in Williamson County, but these guys love living with feral cats. I have no idea why. But we've seen lots and lots of feral cat colonies that have housed up with skunks, and they live beautifully together, which is why we're seeing a higher incident of rabies in cats, because they're living together, grooming, biting, fighting, whatever they're doing, passing the rabies virus. We actually had a positive cat not 2 weeks ago out in Liberty Hill, was because it was living with a skunk. In case you're curious, tomato juice is an old wives' tale. It will not get rid of skunk spray. It'll make you smell like tomato sauce. If you do get sprayed by a skunk, or your pets do, baking soda, what am I missing? Baking soda, peroxide, and Dawn dish soap. That's what'll get rid of it. So if you see these guys, stay away from them. Again, they're one of our high risks, so if your pet's come in contact with it, call animal control. They cannot get rabies. I should have covered this in rabies. Rabies is only transmissible through saliva and spinal cord fluid. There is no rabies virus in urine, feces, skunk spray, blood, any other fluid or gross thing that comes out of the body. It's only carried in the saliva and the cerebral spinal fluid. So if you get sprayed by a skunk or your dog does, it's not going to get rabies. Foxes, I'm not sure if you guys have a big fox problem out here.
We have foxes.
Do you? Okay. These guys are the coolest of the urban wildlife. These guys are part of the dog family, part of the canine family. They actually behave more like cats. If you ever get an opportunity to watch one from a distance, I highly recommend it. These guys hunt like cats. They act like cats. Ones that they have caught and domesticated, oftentimes they act just like a big cat. They're very cool. These guys are incredibly shy though. These are not going to be the wildlife that you need to be concerned about them coming up and wanting to live on your back patio, things like that. If they're doing that, they're either a denning mother or they're sick, because these guys are very, very shy. They're very easy to run off. They don't like to stick around. They eat lots of little small things, insects, small mammals, whatever, and coyotes are their main predator. And we'll get into the opportunistic part here in a little bit when we talk about all of urban wildlife together. Do you guys have a lot of snakes out here? Probably. So we only have 4 venomous snakes here in Central Texas. These are the 4 venomous right here: copperhead, coral snake, rattlesnake, and the cottonmouth or the water moccasin. The cottonmouth/water moccasin, whatever your chosen phrase is, oftentimes gets mistaken for a water snake. To date, unless Tim has updated that, we have never had a confirmed water moccasin sighting in Williamson County. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. We've just, between all the herpetology community, we've never had it. We've never seen one. Anytime someone gets called and says, hey, there's a water moccasin out here, it ends up being just a water snake, which is non-venomous. They're mean, but they're non-venomous. To my knowledge, there's not a lot of copperheads around here. We do have coral snakes, and we do have rattlesnakes. The thing about coral snakes, they're a rear-fanged snake, which means their fangs sit further back in their mouth. They are venomous, but I know there's the poem about kill a fellow and whatnot. They are not going to kill anybody. These guys are very tolerant snakes. You really have to make them super mad to get them to bite you. And in order for them to envenomate you, they have to kind of chew on you. They have to bite you several times to get their venom in you. Most people aren't going to sit there and let them do that.
So they have a very small mouth too?
They do have a very small mouth, yeah. And in fact, they don't even make anti-venom for coral snakes anymore because they're such an incredibly low risk. If you get bitten by a coral snake, you'll go to the hospital, they'll put you on antibiotics, they'll clean you up, and they'll send you home. That's about all they're going to do. Rattlesnakes do have a potent venom. That's the one we're most concerned about people getting bit by. And they're kind of found everywhere. The thing about all snakes is they don't want to be anywhere near us. So if you're out walking through the creek bed or walking down the trail and you know that there are snakes out there, if you just walk loudly, they will leave. They don't like the vibration in the ground. They don't want to be stepped on, so they'll just leave. So if you see one on the path, just go around it, start stomping your feet, shuffling, kicking up dirt, and it'll take off. They only are going to strike and get caught up like this when they feel threatened and they don't think they have anywhere they can go. Does that make sense? Most of the other snakes around here, yeah.
So a question is,
Yes.
I've had people see bull snakes and think they're rattlesnakes because the
Yeah.
markings can be similar.
Right.
But I'm correct in encouraging them to look at the head with the wide jaws, correct?
No.
No?
No, the whole thing about snakes, where they have a triangle head, they're venomous. If they've got the slit in the eye, they're venomous. That is true on some snakes. First of all, I'm going to tell you, just let the eye thing go. Because if you're getting close enough to a snake to determine its eyes, I can't help you. Let the eye thing go. There are snakes that are non-venomous that have triangle heads because just like a rat snake, which is non-venomous, will shake its tail like a rattlesnake, it wants you to think, I'm mean, I'm venomous, I'm going to hurt you. That's why they've evolved to have the triangle head to look like something worse than them. So it's not a reliable way to go on. There are lots of apps and classes and things like that where you can learn about all the different types of snakes, and they go into a lot of detail. We didn't bring the flyers, did we, for Tim's class? There's actually going to be one in Georgetown, May. We'll get the date for you. There's actually going to be, it's a free class by one of our associates. His name is Tim Cole. He runs Austin Reptile Service. It's a free class at the Georgetown Library, I believe. And I think it's like 3 or 4 hours in the morning. Family friendly, everybody can come. And he actually brings snakes. They're all in cages, he doesn't let them go.
I think he's gonna have 26 snakes.
Yeah. And he has them in these nice, beautiful acrylic cages, so you can actually go up and look at them and get up close and personal. You don't have to touch them; they don't come out. But he'll go. You can go up and see them, see what they look like. You know, and he has all kinds of juveniles, adults, and everything. He does a really, really good class on snake familiarization. I highly recommend it. It's free to the public.
I'm sure a lot of people in this room think that there's a lot of fun facts about snakes.
I know. Well, I'm a little biased because I love snakes, and in fact, I take as many snake calls as I can. I love them.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be May 27th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Georgetown Public Library.
And it's free.
And it's free.
And it's very family friendly. He does a lot of birthday parties and children's events, so it's good for everybody to come out and learn. I know you guys are probably not big fans of snakes, but we do have some very cool snakes here. We have one that's called a hognose. It's my personal favorite snake. Hognoses are venomous to frogs. That's what they eat. They're also rear-fanged. They're not going to hurt you if they bite you, but they're probably not going to bite you. They really like to roll over on their back and play dead. They emit this horrible musk, and they make this really cool hissing sound. I know I'm probably the only one that does this just to get them to do it, but they do. It's kind of a cool feature that they do. Snakes, unless they're giving birth, either to live birth or eggs, snakes don't typically den up a lot. So if you see one snake on your property, it does not mean you're going to see multiple snakes. That snake is probably solitary. So it's not a big concern that you should have if you see one snake on your property. But anyway, I only put up the venomous snakes because these are the most important. Things like the bull snake, yeah, they do kind of look like rattlesnakes, except bull snakes are huge. They're very big-bodied snakes, they're very muscular, and they're very long. So it's good to know them, but these are the important ones to know. Yes, sir?
HEB, at least the one over on Greenlawn, at their checkout counters where the candy and stuff is, they have a series of fold-out brochures, one on snakes, one on birds, flowers, spiders, and so if you want one on the snakes,
and those are great to have. We actually, a lot of ACOs carry those in their trucks, especially like I have the bird one because I don't know anything about birds. So I keep the bird one in there in case I need to ID a bird out in the field. They're fantastic guys. They're like $6 or $7. They're a great resource. All right. So the reason we're all here tonight, coyotes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some coyote facts. We're going to talk about deterrence and coexisting, and then I'm going to kind of go into maybe the not so fun part of how to deal with them, right? Again, feel free to stop me at any time if I go too fast or if any of this is confusing. So, fun facts. Again, they'll eat just about anything. They're good swimmers. The best way to determine a coyote from most other canids is that they run with their tail down. Most dogs, most domestic dogs, wolves, things like that run with their tail up. Coyotes only run with their tail down. One of the reasons that these guys are so highly adaptable to an urban setting is they don't require a big shelter. So just under a rock, little niche under the patio, they don't require a lot of shelter. They don't need some big, huge den. So they're very adaptable to urban settings. And they are mostly nocturnal. However, the one thing that, well, maybe not the one thing, the main thing that all of these animals that we've talked about tonight have in common is that they are incredibly adaptable. They've adapted to our ways. So they can, if they know that everybody puts their trash out at 9 a.m., guess what? They're staying up late because they will come out at 9 a.m. for the trash. Or if they know everybody feeds their cats at 11, well, it's going to be party time because they're going to come out at 11. They adapt to our ways. So just because you see a coyote out during the day, it doesn't necessarily mean it's sick. It could be breeding season. It could have had a rough night hunting. It could be out because it knows our behavior. So they're super adaptable. So if you see them out during the day, it doesn't necessarily mean they're sick. Mostly nocturnal. This is the kind of cool part, which we're going to get into a little deeper here in a minute. Coyotes have 11 different vocalizations. There's been a ton of studies on urban coyotes. There was a huge one a couple years ago out of Chicago. There was another one in LA, and I think maybe one in Seattle. The one in Chicago was pretty eye-opening to even the researchers who kind of knew what they were getting into, because they were really surprised by the results they got from their research. And I'm not going to go super into their thing, but some of the highlights. What they found is that they have these 11 different vocalizations. The reason that's important is a lot of people will call in and say, I have a huge pack of coyotes living behind my house. There's a better than not chance that you might have 3 or 4. But because they have these many vocalizations, it sounds like a lot. So just remember that. It doesn't mean that there isn't a big pack of coyotes, because sometimes some parts of the year it is going to be a big pack. But most of the time we're talking about a few coyotes that just have a really big vocal range. They mate in around February, sometimes late January, sometimes March, kind of depends on how cold of a winter we had. They kind of came out early this year. Coyotes mate for life, and they are 100% monogamous. So they will find that perfect soulmate, and that's who they are with until one or both of them dies. That doesn't ever change. In the Chicago study, they were doing DNA testing, thinking, well, if the female dies, they're going to go find another female. They didn't. There was no DNA cross there. They mate for life. They are 100% monogamous till death. Most of the time when we're talking about a group of coyotes, because they only come together during mating season. So in that February-ish time, that's when everybody comes together. That's when you're going to have big packs, because they're all coming together for mating. Most packs, only the dominant male and female can mate. So you might have 10, 15 coyotes in there, but it's going to be one male and one female that mate and have a litter. Here's where we get into the not so fun part. Please don't throw anything at me. When you kill off, trap, remove, or natural causes, one or both of those dominant pairs disappear, you can send every single one of those females into estrus. Every single one of those females. So instead of having one litter of 3 to 6 pups every year, you're looking at 8 to 10 females who are all going to breed that year. And now you've got a huge coyote problem. This is kind of the problem with the trap and killing movement. It's one of the problems. We'll get to the rest in a minute. So you generally want to be careful when we're talking about trapping and or killing coyotes, because it is possible that you could make the problem 100 times worse by killing one coyote or removing it, whatever you do. Adult males, when they come back to the group in February, they mate, they have the litters, and the males stay and help raise the young. Around September, October, they all kind of split up again. The pups are old enough to go move on their own. The moms, the females sort of stay in smaller-ish groups. They might 2 or 3 to a group, and that kind of fades in and out. They might go off on their own for a few days, come back, but the males largely just kind of dissipate. And then they'll come back again every February. Again, they mate for life, so they will come back. Yeah.
Can you explain that again? You said they mate for life. If one of the pairs dies off, they don't pair up with somebody else. But you just
Not
said,
usually, no. Not based on the studies they've done.
but if the female dies or is trapped or whatever, then the male will mate with all the other females?
No, it'll send all the females into heat, and all the males from far away will smell that and come in and breed until they decide who's going to be the next dominant pair. So that's the big problem. So that dominant pair kind of rules everything. So if something happens, then of course natural causes, eventually they're going to die anyway. And so you'll probably have that problem every so often, but with the trapping and killing, that can exponentially cause a huge problem.
So when they come in and they trap a coyote, what do they do with it?
Here, or what are they doing?
They come out here, say in our neighborhood, they trap a coyote. What happens to that coyote?
Well, first of all, who's they? The state trappers?
Whoever officially, the agriculture department, whoever does it,
Right.
comes out and traps a coyote, what happens?
In this one particular instance here in Round Rock, they are euthanizing the coyotes.
But that's because they carry the weight.
Right.
You gotta understand, we can't trap a coyote and move it to another area and possibly transport rabies to another area. So you have to euthanize that coyote once it's trapped.
Yeah, go ahead.
How high can a coyote jump? We have dogs and we have a 6-foot fence.
Yeah, no
So I
problem.
worry.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Okay.
I've personally witnessed it. They can get over a 6-foot fence very easily. Yeah, we talk about that here in just a minute. So again, trapping and or killing coyotes can oftentimes have the opposite effect. There is another major component to the coyote problem and what causes their numbers to grow exponentially, but we'll get to that in a second. In the study that they did of coyotes, this is a graph showing their stomach contents of what they found over 2,238 coyotes. As you can see, their number one food source is rabbits, and carrion, which is just dead animals, dead flesh of some sort, and then rodents and livestock. This right here, this other animals category, this 1%, is domestic cats and dogs. So it's a very small, it's not part of their main diet. So, some good information for you there. They actually don't even eat deer that much. All right, so the number one thing of all wildlife is what I'm going to kind of go on all night. All urban wildlife is opportunistic. If there is opportunity, they will capitalize on it. So they will eat cats and small dogs because it's the opportunity. Cats, especially urban cats, if they're feral cats or just an indoor-outdoor house cat, sometimes they might be a little overweight, they can't get away from predators. That's an easy meal, right? It's kind of like us going through Whataburger, like I had to do tonight. Easy meal. It's not something you have to work very hard for, whereas a rabbit, they might have to chase down. So they will, I have personally witnessed it, kind of like Round Rock's working with y'all about the coyote problems. We had to work with the Brushy Creek area over there off Wyoming Springs for a while with their coyote problem. And they were having the same problem. The coyotes had gotten to the point where they were just jumping 6-foot fences right in front of the owners to get their dogs. So it was pretty common, and they will do it. But again, that's not their main prey. It's not really what they want. But again, they're not going to turn down an easy free meal. They will bite if threatened. If you come up on a coyote and you corner it, they'll bite you. And of course, we're building more and more houses. We're encroaching on their territory, and we're creatures of habit, and we throw our trash away outside. We feed our cats, we feed our birds, we do all this stuff outside, and that's super easy for them. They have no problem. They're like, that's great. Open buffet, 24 hours. It's like being on a cruise ship. They will oftentimes interact with domestic dogs. This isn't super common. This happens a little more kind of out in the county areas. We'll see sometimes people who have big ranches, their dogs will be out running with coyotes. It happens sometimes. Most of the time, if they're fighting with a dog, it's because they're sick, either with distemper or rabies. The thing with coyotes and really all of these animals is they're very easy to deter. I say that it's very easy because they respond well to deterrence, but it requires a lot of work on our part. Have you guys ever heard of coyote hazing? Has anyone ever heard of it? Okay. Coyote hazing is basically just like what it sounds. It's more of an offensive tactic, whereas things like putting out, wolf urine or whatever spray or anything is more, a defensive thing. Hazing is a little more offensive. So it's basically using all types of various forms of deterrence to chase them off, right? Because wildlife, if they're not comfortable, they won't stay. And I know that sounds oversimplistic, but it really is that simple. Some examples: yelling, clapping, waving, jars of pennies you shake at it, throw tennis balls, water sprinklers, water hoses, motion activated sprinklers, things like that. Really good for deterrence. Adaptive species, they of course will only take up residence when the opportunity exists. Hazing works really well, but hazing doesn't work one time. These animals have gotten used to us, and they're like, hey, I know that she feeds her cat at 10 o'clock every morning, so I'm gonna come eat some food. Or I know that she lets her dog out at 6 o'clock at night, so free snack for Fluffy. They know these things, and that's still opportunity for them. So they're gonna wanna keep coming. So if you see a coyote coming up in your yard and you throw things and you're chasing it and yelling it and it runs off, it might run off to that wall and stop and look at you and think, I think she lost her mind. He's probably going to come back, okay? This is something that you have to do over and over again. Not forever. It usually only takes 3 or 4 times. And this is kind of a community thing, which is one of the reasons we're coming out trying to help everybody with this, because if it's only one person doing the hazing, well, they're just going to move to the next yard. It has to be a community thing. Again, I got ahead of myself. Everything has to be repeated. And it's not good to just have one. Yelling and screaming and throwing things, I would go with more than that. Have an air horn, have a jar of pennies, whatever you're going to do to deter them. Yeah? Do you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I had your question. So, when we're talking about coexisting with these guys, this is the one that everybody wants to throw things at me for. Do not feed outdoor animals. And I understand that there's hobbyists, and people have outdoor cats, or they like to feed the wildlife because they like to look at it. I understand that. And if you continue to do it, I'm not going to come to your house, it's fine. But if you are going to feed anything outside, whether it's wild birds, or you are feeding wildlife, or you're feeding cats, anything like that, the recommendation is that you feed them for an hour a day and supervise it if you can. So put the food out for an hour. If you're washing dishes at your kitchen window, keep an eye on it, make sure skunks aren't coming up, coyotes, whatever. Supervise it and then pick it up. I know it's very hard to do that if you have cats that are used to free feeding. They do get used to it. It might take 3 days, but I promise you, they'll come back. Keep your yards cleaned and picked up. Most of these animals will eat just about anything, including your dog's poop, including trash, including, the half a hamburger that fell off the grill last Saturday. They'll eat just about anything. You want to clear brush off your property, typical things that you would do to keep rodents and things away. It all applies to urban wildlife as well. Don't put wood stacked up next to your house. Block off underneath your patios. Make sure your attic spaces are all closed up. All important things to do. Again, please don't throw anything at me. Keeping cats inside. There are several reasons for this. Obviously, one is urban wildlife. The #1 killer of outdoor cats is cars, pesticides, poisoning, whatever else, coyotes. These are all things, you don't want your cats to do that. The average lifespan of an outdoor cat is less than half of an indoor cat. So, and believe me, I know I have a cat who screams at the back door every day, but she tell her tough. She doesn't get to go outside. She's not very lucky. And if you're going to have your animals outside, supervise them. Because if you're outside with your cat or outside with your dog and a coyote's coming up and you can employ some of these hazing techniques, you might scare your dog, but you're going to get that coyote to move on and realize that this is not a good place to eat. It's not a good place to den out. Of course, stay on clearly marked paths if you're out hiking. I know it seems simple, but keep your pets vaccinated. State law does require that your animal have a current rabies vaccine and that you maintain that certificate. So if me or Kelly or Round Rock HCOs, anyone shows up at your door for a rabies investigation, anything like that, and asks to see a copy of your rabies certificate, you are required by state law to provide that. If, for Williamson County, I'm not sure about Round Rock, for Williamson County, if I have to go out on an investigation and they can't provide proof, they've moved, they've lost it, they've thrown it away, the animal is considered unvaccinated. So you don't want to deal with that. Get your animals vaccinated, either a 1-year or 3-year shot, depending on your vet. Keep them vaccinated. That's your #1 defense against rabies and all these guys. Secure trash cans, of course, everybody likes trash. So if you can lock your trash can down, if you keep them in your garage, I'm sure there's different HOA rules. Keep them to where animals can't get into them. Never feed wildlife. Again, I'm not going to come to your house if you do. But if you're feeding one animal outside, doesn't matter what it is. It could be a bird, it could be a squirrel, it could be your cat. If you're feeding one animal outside, you're feeding the entire neighborhood. Even if you don't see it, I promise you it's happening. So, it escalates. So you might put a bird feeder out, and you have some pretty birds that come out, but then you're going to have the squirrels, and then you're going to have the cats, and then you're going to have, you know, the coyotes and the raccoons, and it kind of just builds and builds and builds from there. I heard earlier someone talking about they saw a bobcat recently. Again, it's the food chain. The bigger stuff comes in for the smaller stuff. If the smaller stuff is coming to this bird feeder because there's all kinds of birds and seeds and everything else, it's going to bring in the bigger ones because they think, wow, he's fat and happy, not moving, it's an easy meal. So again, if you're going to feed things outside, it's not a horrible thing to do, but cut it down to an hour a day.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I got some deer that come to the back of my house every once in a while. And like one of my neighbors puts down like a bucket of water or something.
Right.
And is this the same instance as what you're talking about right here now, about not feeding them?
Yes.
Same kind of thing?
Yes. Anytime that as humans we provide some sort of resource to wildlife, we're actually crippling the wildlife population. Because what's happening is we're making them reliant on us, right? Which cripples them as a wild animal. It's part of their DNA and their genetics to go and hunt and look for their food and kill their food and the prey drive. They need that to survive and to maintain their wild tendencies. But we're also decreasing their fear of humans. And that's what causes a lot of them to keep coming in. That's why hazing doesn't work the first time. Because a lot of the coyotes and things are probably used to it, you know, so it takes a little bit. So it's not a good idea to feed or water anything outside.
Excuse me.
Yes?
This might sound like a real stretch,
Go
but
ahead.
we have a pecan tree,
Okay.
and the squirrels go crazy
Yeah.
over the pecans. So
Right.
is that feeding, is that a part of the same situation? Where
You're going to run into some of the same problems because it's going to bring in other things. It's a little different though because, you know, that's kind of naturally occurring. They're out looking for their own food. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas if they get reliant on, I know she fills the bird feeder up every day at dawn, everybody's going to
So
come
it's
in.
more
for
about
that.
human behavior than...
It is, yeah. If they're out naturally foraging, that's what they're supposed to do. It doesn't mean that, I mean, it's not like a raccoon's going to go, that's a pecan tree, not a bird feeder, so I'm going to move on. They're not going to do that. But it's a little more natural, and you're still going to bring in other urban wildlife, but it's not going to be to the same level as if you're creating these habits that are drawing in wildlife, especially easy food like cat food and stuff. Do you have something?
Yeah, I read somewhere that koi ponds, fountains, is that attractive to coyotes?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would imagine raccoons because they love fish. Foxes will eat some fish, but unless you have a big property, a fox probably isn't going to come that close. But yeah, it will absolutely. The other problem with all standing water is it's causes mosquitoes everywhere. So unless you're treating the water to get rid of the mosquito larvae, you have bigger problems than a random raccoon. But yeah, it would absolutely attract them. And again, I do encourage everybody. I know it's kind of weird, and people think I'm weird when I tell them this. I really think that education is the #1 thing. And if you can learn to appreciate your wildlife and take pictures of it and enjoy it when it crosses across your back pasture, that's great. Learn about your wildlife, get to know them, learn their behaviors, learn the things that they like, learn the things that they don't like, so you can put it out there. If there's certain plants you can, plant in the back part of your property that deter deer, there's plants that deter deer, put it out there, and it'll keep them back. However, I'm not a deer expert. I'm not going to lead you down that path. But if there's stuff out there that they don't like, you can put it out there to help deter them. Really quick, I'm going to back up to the hazing. The only thing that hazing really doesn't work on is skunks. Because again, you make a skunk mad, they're just going to spray you. Everything else it works on them. I put up here, and I'll leave this up here, some of the local contacts. There's Round Rock Animal Control, Williamson County Animal Control if you need us. The number to Texas Parks and Wildlife, real quick on Texas Parks and Wildlife, they do not deal with predators. So the only time that they're going to come in and deal with a predator animal, such as a coyote, bobcat, a mountain lion, is if it's like on a school property or dying in a roadway. That's pretty much it. They largely deal with deer and hunting and fishing, things like that.
We're going to send this out to you guys so you'll all have this contact.
Yeah, this will all be on here. The number to Bat Conservation International, they do have a website if you Google them. They're a wealth of information for bats. And then our information with humane educators, our quick little plug. We travel all over the state. We're actually going nationwide later this year. And we do these HOA meetings all the time. We also go out and train animal control officers, police, shelter staff, and whatnot. So if you ever know anyone with a need for classes, give us a call, and our cards on the back table too. Any questions? Yes.
Owls.
Yes.
We have owls in our area, and I saw a really, really big owl.
Yeah. What color was it? Do you know?
Brownish gray. It's nighttime.
Okay.
Then with the flashlight, we have little 8-pound dogs, and I know that's a problem. How can you get rid of owls?
You can't. And the other thing with owls and birds of prey and even vultures is they're protected species. It's currently, or at least last time I checked, a $10,000 fine to touch a vulture. So don't do it. What I recommend is if you're going to watch your dogs at night, put them on a leash. It's not going to save them from an owl attack, but at least you'll have a way to yank them back down if you need to. So I know it sounds horrible. That's what my friend does. She fosters a lot for the shelter, and she fosters a lot of puppies. And at night when we go outside to let them out, her big dogs run amok, but the little ones go on leashes because she wants a way to pull them out.
What about hawks?
Same thing. They're all protected. Yeah. Do you know of any birds of prey that are not protected here? I don't know of any. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question, because one of these, because I get emails, all kinds of people all the time.
Sure.
And we'll have how, if an animal has been attacked and it's dead and dismembered, and I'm sorry, I'm just going by emails that I get, and it's spread out all over the place. Is there a way to tell what it might have been that attacked?
No.
Okay.
There's not. I do those investigations all day long. The reason there's no way to tell is because we don't know. Now, when I do those investigations, I always ask, do you or your neighbors have a video camera system? Sometimes it's just that easy. Go back and rewind the footage and see what it was. If we're talking about the difference between a coyote and a stray dog, there's going to be very little difference. The other thing that makes a difference is if that animal, let's say it's a coyote, kills a cat and gets interrupted, it's not, people tell me all the time, well, coyotes, they only eat the innards, they don't eat anything else. Or they'll tell me, oh, it only eats the head. I've been told everything. But if they get interrupted, a car drives by and scares them, a dog comes out and barks at them, they hear someone walking down the street, they're going to abandon their meal and leave. So just looking at a carcass is not enough to make a definitive determination.
So if a coyote's not interrupted and it's gotten a hold of a cat or a small dog or something, typically they just eat the whole thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to eat a ton of fur, but most of the time they'll eat most everything, except for the bigger bones. They generally don't chop them, but they'll eat most everything. Yeah, if they don't get interrupted. Yeah.
Well, we had a cat that was killed, and all that was left was the head and one of the front legs. A neighbor 2 doors down found another, of the lakes.
Right,
Everything else is gone.
right,
We do have a coyote
right,
that we get on our camera
yeah,
constantly,
yeah.
and he is running our back fence. So, I mean, are you saying that a regular dog will decapitate a cat?
It all depends. It really does depend on the species. I mean, it could be anything. And it depends on if they're killing it. If they're killing it because it's the prey drive, especially if we're talking about a stray dog, they may do horrible things to it. The dogs will take it and they'll shake it, and that might, I mean, I hate to be gross, but it might pop the cat's head off. I mean, you never know. So it's unless there's somebody out there way smarter than you, which is entirely possible, it's really not a good way to determine what killed it. There's not any real good ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta expand on that a little bit.
Sure.
We have a game cam that we put out a year ago Christmas to watch we have a little green belt area
Right,
behind us,
right.
a chain link fence.
Right.
So we watched the deer on the game cam. The cat got killed this February, okay, and I'm the one that found it, the head was
Right.
chewed off.
Right.
Okay, and the front leg was chewed off. That's all we found.
Right.
So I'm assuming whatever it was carried the rest of it off. The very next day, we caught the coyote on the game cam for the
Right.
first time. I mean, we had it out there for over, a year and a couple months
Right.
and hadn't caught it. Now we're seeing it almost every 4 to 5 days
Right.
religiously. on
So
the game
you
cam.
said you found it in February, you got killed in February?
Mhm.
So another possibility, because it's breeding season in February, is that somebody came along and killed your cat, I mean coyote, not person, came along and killed your cat, and the other one said, hey, food, and they fought over it. That can shred a cat as well. Because we're talking about the time of year when they come together as a pack, and it's a food resource, and they will fight over that. So it's just like any other, it's like when you turn on National Geographic and watch the lions fight, it's the same concept, they'll do the same thing. So it could have been just that one of them grabbed your cat and killed it, and the other one,
And that's a possibility. I guess my question is probably more for Round Rock Animal Control. Is there been an uptick in this neighborhood recently? We've lived here for 24 years. The neighborhood's not a new neighborhood. I mean, it's a
Right.
mature neighborhood. It's 40 plus years old.
Right.
And it's like the same two-door down neighbor saw one a week later walking up the middle of our street.
right,
Where we haven't seen them for 20-something years.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're spotting them all over the place.
right. Well, if you guys want to talk about specifically Round Rock, I can tell you as far as Williamson County as a whole, yes, we have seen an uptick in urban wildlife across the board, not just coyotes, skunks, everything else. We have seen an uptick in urban wildlife, but everything that we've seen is a direct correlation with human behavior. We're expanding, we're building more neighborhoods, which is pushing coyotes out of, so there might be construction, within a 5-mile radius of here that's pushing the coyotes this way, right? We're talking about more people, more trash, more people who are hobbyists with birds and feeding their cats outside, things like that. So yes, we have absolutely, in all of Williamson County, I'm sure you guys can talk about Round Rock, in all of Williamson County, we've seen a huge uptick, but everything has been a direct correlation with human behavior. So it's not just because they're having more.
And I mean, I appreciate the slide decks you gave and what have you. I've been an outdoorsman most of my
Right.
life. But, I even appreciate a rattlesnake, that's fine. But when it gets in the backyard with your pets or your kids,
Right.
it becomes a pest.
Right.
A squirrel, it's fun to watch a squirrel. When it gets in your attic and chews your wires, it becomes a pest.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
A coyote has its place, but when it gets into the yard and kills your pet, it's a
Right.
pest.
Right.
And I'm just trying to figure out, is there an uptick? I mean, we have never, like I say, our neighbor saw one coming down the street. We've never seen this one outside.
Right.
We catch it on the cam every few days.
Right.
Okay? So it's not like we can sit out there at 3 o'clock. We caught it last night at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay?
Right.
We can't sit out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and be pants
Right.
to scare it off. Okay?
Right.
And it's just walking by our fence. It's not, we only have a chain link fence that could easily jump in. It's not coming into
Right.
our backyard.
Right.
The cat was actually killed in the bench of our front door.
Right.
So some way or the other, it had to get around to the other side.
Right.
Of course, the one down the street was in the front yards. But it's just like all of a sudden we've got this pest problem that we haven't had before. And so far, all we've heard is, you gotta coexist, you gotta live with them.
Right.
Well, I don't live with a squirrel in my attic, I don't live with a rattlesnake in my backyard. Do I really have to live with a coyote that's killing our domestic pets?
Right. No, I understand. And again, they would have to talk about the Round Rock Board. In county, you can shoot them. If you live in the county part, you can shoot them all day. It doesn't matter. And in fact, there are some counties in Texas that still offer a coyote down. You turn in 2 years until it gets whipped by us. Williamson County's not one of them. But, yes.
Okay, my question is, my concern is, because you talked about, so if, if you're out there and you're hunting or trapping or shooting or whatever's happening,
Right.
that dominant one, then all of a sudden you've increased the coyote population.
Right.
Now, we got 1,500 homes here, about 250 of them approximately are backed up to open areas.
Okay.
Most of them over here to the Robinson Ranch, which is never going to be developed,
Right.
okay, anywhere near here. Now, the only construction that's going
Right.
to go on over there is a new dam,
Right.
okay, which probably will stir some stuff up.
It will.
The rest of them, we see them on the green belt, they work their way across, and I've seen them for years in the neighborhood.
Right.
But not running down the street. I've seen them in the green belt, I've seen them in little, green areas between houses, trying to probably get from there to here and
Right.
and go back and so forth. So
Right.
the trapping, whatever, is gonna increase the population? Did I
It
understand that
can.
right?
It can. So if you see a coyote and you trap it or you shoot it, it may not be the dominant male or female. It's not going to affect anything. Of course, you're not going to know that. They don't walk around with a giant tag that says dominant. Right. You're not going to know that. But I can tell you, if you can use whatever deterrent you can, obviously I don't stay up till 3 in the morning banging pots of pan. If you can use whatever deterrent you can, coupled with taking away the opportunity, they will move on. Because here's the thing. Even if you have a magical trapper or a really good marksman who comes in and kills every single coyote in this neighborhood, if the opportunity still exists, another pack will move in. 100% of the time. As far as coyotes, if there's opportunity, they will come back.
Are they territorial, that when you say, like, if they move this pack, another one will come in? So if there's a pack here, they kind of own this area?
Generally, yeah. I mean, it changes a little during breeding season, but generally, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I know that a state trapper has been out in between 6:20 and 10.
Right.
So I think he's trapped 4.
Okay.
So how many has it caused? I mean, if that's...
Don't know unless
We don't know, yeah. And a lot of it will depend. Again, I don't know when he started trapping. If he started trapping during breeding season, it could potentially cause an exponential growth. If he just started trapping, we're getting kind of late. They probably wouldn't be sent into estrus this late in the year. It just all depends. Because again, this is the big problem with urban wildlife, because they adapt to us. These things are prone to change. So likely, I'm going to say likely, 4 coyotes probably hasn't done a whole lot. But if he does end up coming and wiping them out, if the opportunity still exists, they will come back. That's why this is kind of a community thing.
Yeah.
If 3 people in the neighborhood decide, you know what, I'm going to take that crazy lady's advice and quit feeding my cats outside, that's not going to do anything. Everybody needs to get in on the, either deterrence or taking away the opportunity. Everybody needs to work together on that, because 1 or 2 people is not going to make a big difference.
We can take this information and continue to get it out to everybody in the neighborhood and hopefully make some kind of dent in it. Again, I don't.
Yeah,
When
hopefully.
we're back up to 10,000 acres, it's kind of hard.
Yeah,
but
it is hard. And again, with some of that is unavoidable. I'm not saying that, humans are 100%, or residents are 100% to blame. You're going to always have this problem with encroaching construction as they build up the town. You're gonna see it in waves. Even if every single person in this neighborhood gets rid of the opportunity and uses the deterrence and does everything right, you're gonna see fluctuations, you're gonna see coyotes move through. But again, as they come through looking for opportunity and territory, if none exists, they will move on. Wildlife will not stay if the opportunity doesn't exist. If there's no food, shelter, or water, they're out.
I hate to be a pain.
No, please do.
In a perfect world, let's just say our yard.
Right.
We have a koi pond and bird feeders. So blue sky, we should be getting rid of all that to ensure that we're not encroached upon.
No. No. What I would say, don't get rid of your koi pond. They're beautiful. And I know, I mean, kudos to people who can, I would not be able to keep fish. I tried. But don't get rid of it. But if you have the ability to put something over it at night, grate or some sort of barrier around it to keep the wildlife out, most of the time that will work. And as far, again, with feeding things outside, if you do that, that's your choice. But it does come exponentially. So if you're going to feed the birds, feed them for an hour a day, or an hour in the morning, an hour at night, if you're not comfortable with just 1 hour a day. Do it, or if you're gonna go outside and have margaritas on the back patio, fill up the bird feeder, they'll get used to your behavior. It might take a couple days, but they'll come around. So you can still feed them outside. It's just, if you're going to feed them constantly, know that it will create that opportunity.
What about lights?
Lights do help with some.
They don't like
Yeah, honestly,
flashing and blah, blah.
you know what a really, I kind of laugh because I've been hit by these. A really great deterrent is the motion-activated sprinklers. The problem with motion-activated sprinklers is they are not picky. And if you are setting one and you move the wrong way, you're going to get wet.
They're great for solicitors, too.
They are great for solicitors. You want people off your lawn, get a motion-activated sprinkler. But they will sprinkle with any motion. And they have different, you can get fancy ones or less fancy, whatever, you just hook them up to your hose. You can get varying types, and you can turn up the intensity a lot of times too. So you can make them pretty strong. Or if you got kids or grandkids, don't go after with the super soda.
Probably get a motion activated air horn, but your neighbors wouldn't like it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you have a question, sir?
Are feral hogs a problem anywhere close to this area?
They are for us, but that's really you guys.
We haven't really had any reported to us within the last year or two of anything substantial. There's been like 2 seen in the Greenbelt, but that's the extent of it. And like she said, as we continue to grow, Round Rock obviously is going to continue to grow. Can't avoid it. But like you said, with the Greenbelt being right there, that area where they can go to is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. So they're going to that area because that's where they can go. Kind of the same issue that LA sees and Chicago sees, where they did this study. They haven't gotten rid of coyotes. There's a good chance we aren't, but we can learn how to keep those numbers down to a manageable amount as opposed to, these large cities haven't gotten rid of them. Obviously, we got to do something different.
And the big reason for that, whether you agree with it or not, is that every bit of these urban wildlife that we talked about tonight, and even the ones that I didn't get into, they are a vital role in our ecosystem. I know nobody likes to hear that, and I'm the hippy-dippy who says it, but they are important, right? A lot of these animals take care of the things that we don't want. They take care of the rats, they take care of the mice, they take care of some of the snakes. They take care of the ticks, the things that cause disease. They get in the attic and chew the wires or eat the wood. They do take care of a lot of that. You get rid of those, we will be overrun with mice. So there's a lot of benefits to having this urban wildlife around, even though I know that's not great when they have pets. It's not fun.
There's questions, more questions, anybody?
Yeah, I have one question, not about wild animals, domestic animals. Is there a procedure for getting some help with, say, a dog that continues to bark all the time?
Gee, I've never heard that one before.
Okay, so the answer, so here's my, and you correct me if I'm wrong here. My suggestion is either audio tape, videotape, if it's, and get some kind of evidence that it happens, because it's inevitable, they're going to be barking, you're going to call the police department, they're going to send animal control out, and guess what the dogs are doing? They're napping, okay? And so there's no problem. So am I correct that this would help?
What you can do is come down to the police department or give us a call and we can bring them out to you, but we have citizen complaint packets and you can file those directly with the courts anytime there's a barking dog and basically present your evidence to the courts in those matters.
And so the ordinance is the dog cannot bark 10 minutes constantly or 30 minutes intermittently, and it has to be unprovoked. The key part of that is unprovoked.
Yeah, you can't go stop.
You can't throw things at the fence, yelling at the dog to shut up, and then report it. That's considered provoked.
Is there a train going by provoking the dog?
For a little bit, but if it's been 10 minutes ago that the train went by and he's still barking,
There's a problem.
that's a problem.
So do you have another question?
Yes, just to respond to that, maybe it's talking about me, but anyway, to me, if my dog were a problem, I'd like the the resident to come to me and say something instead of y'all coming to my door, getting a notice. I would rather agree.
Most of the time that will work, okay? And sometimes it won't. And here's what I'll tell you, and he's gonna tell me no.
Yeah.
But if you've got a neighbor that you don't really want to go talk to,
Well,
just
yes.
because you're not a talkative person, call me. I'll go knock on their door and talk to them. I have no problem doing that. And you know, I've been doing that for years, and some of them I've solved, some of them they've told me, go take a long walk on a short pier, you know? You never know what's gonna happen, so.
We've actually changed our working just a little bit on how we deal with it a lot, and this is actually fairly recently. If you make a complaint about the house, you call in, but we've never had any history. We've never talked to these people before. We've never had any complaints about parking before. The first thing we do is we send a letter. It's a letter to the owner explaining what the ordinance is, just that somebody made a complaint, that this is an issue you need to address. It's very just in the mail, not oppressive at all, just, hey, you know, there's a complaint, you know, this is something you need to pay attention to in the future, this is what the ordinance is. And then after that, we go out. But if this house has been called on 4 times this week, then yeah, we're coming out.
And we've had a couple, and I think it's 3 dogs. City ordinance is 3 dogs, right?
No, there's no limit to the number of animals. No, they changed that. There's no limit to the number of animals you have as long as you can provide the proper basic care for all of them.
However, if you go back 40 years to the original deed restrictions for the neighborhood, it does say 3 dogs. Okay?
Yeah, that, just city-wise.
Okay, I did look that up one time. I had to dig them up from like 15 different places, but I found them. So, and it depends on where you live, like Cimarron or Round Rock West sections 1 through 5 or something. They'll vary a little bit. One thing about domestic pets, what we're talking about. So you guys get the emails. And I had a cat that was an indoor cat, but inevitably, once a week, he'd find a way to shoot out the door when somebody was coming in or out. But we did our best to keep him in. Well, you guys get the emails. Well, no, you don't get all of them, because sometimes I'll get an email from someone that says, I lost my beagle, and then 5 minutes later, I get someone, I found the beagle, and I'll hook them up. So you guys don't see all of that, but probably 5 to 6 times a week, I get emails about lost or found pets, okay? And frankly, a lot of them are the same pets, always getting in and out. And many of the times, these lost and found pets we get don't have a collar or a tag on them, and they're required to have a collar and tag on them, right? Okay? I'm ready to start calling them and saying, hey, this person doesn't have a tag on, write them a ticket or something. I'm just frustrated with it, because you need to keep, I know the cat's uncomfortable, the dog's uncomfortable, I keep getting hooked on stuff. Keep the tag on the dog. Get them microchipped, okay? The neighborhood association is about to buy a chip reader. So you don't have to go running down to the vet. You can just call us and we can check it and see if we can find out who the owner is. So tag your dogs, get the collars on them, do what you can to keep them in, you know, if you've got a Rottweiler, you don't need to keep your Rottweiler inside, but if you've got a Pomeranian or something like that, be careful, and cats the same way. And we're gonna take this information and it's gonna take me a little bit, but I'm gonna try to get it organized in a simple way to send out to everybody, kind of explain what we're trying to do, and kind of a public awareness. Now, I don't have everybody, we have about 800 email addresses. And generally when I send an email out, I get a read of about anywhere between 30 and 40% of those. So I'm hitting 320 people out of 1,500. And then we have our Facebook pages that we post stuff on too. So we're gonna do our best, and we can also maybe put together a flyer to have our block captions put out on everybody's house. We can work on that kind of a public information campaign to educate them. To be clear, the coyotes are never going to completely go away, but this may help if we can get everybody to, like you said, take the targets of opportunity out of the way. So, main thing in the meantime, though, try to keep your pets inside. If they're small pets, cats and dogs, keep them inside. And I have seen owls go after little dogs. I saw I think it was a little buzzard or something, smaller one, take off and grab a squirrel and take off.
They will,
you know?
they will also dismember cats as well.
Yeah.
Hawks.
So it's not, the coyotes aren't the only issue. And I'll see Facebook posts, great big owl in the tree over here on so-and-so street. He's probably just sitting there
Waiting.
waiting for dinner to walk by. So, okay, any more questions? They're gonna hang around for a while to answer any additional one-on-one questions that you guys have got. Anything else? Okay, thank you guys for coming tonight, and thank them.